Hi everyone, welcome back to the Reclaimed Ranch. My name is Tara.
So this is my friend's table. It's a really cool old table with some cool spindle legs, but the top is just in horrendous condition. And it is a veneer. So you can see there's some chunks kind of taken out here and there. So what I'm gonna have to do is probably sand it down a little bit and then put some Bondo in there to smooth it out because she wants me to paint it in the fusion color damask. So we'll start working on it and see how it turns out.
So before I sanded, I did of course take my TSP from Fusion and I went over it a couple of times because it was pretty dirty and got most everything off there that I could. And then there was a lot of scratches and divots on the top, but being that it was veneer, I didn't want to burn through it, so I just kind of lightly went over it. This is a 120 grit sandpaper, and I'm just trying to smooth out as much as I can on the top, and then I'm gonna kind of scuff sand the rest of the piece. And I did go over with my Bondo. I forgot to push record when I was doing that, so you'll see what kind of Bondo I use. It is a two-part, and so here it is. Here it's a high bond filler, and you mix one part in the can with the cream, the blue cream, until it's completely like a blue-gray color. Then you fill it in and leave it for 15 minutes, and then you sand it down smooth. So there's a bunch of areas that look gray, and that's where the Bondo filler is. And then I went in, she wanted the damask color, which this is kind of cool when you do custom pieces, is I probably normally wouldn't have chosen this color for a piece in my decor, but since it's a custom piece, I get to play around with colors I wouldn't normally use. So that's kind of the fun thing about that. And so it's a really pretty dusty rose. It kind of some of the mauve family, I guess, but it's just a very pretty feminine color. And so I did do two coats, but they're very thin coats. You can see I had my mister and I sprayed the brush as well as the piece before I used any paint on it. And I prefer to do really thin coats of paint, multiple coats, instead of thick, because once you do that thick paint, that's when you get all the brush strokes. So if you do a nice thin paint, this does have a self-leveling additive that helps smooth it out, and it keeps the brush strokes to a minimum. So the first coat's always really, really ugly anyway. It's never going to be perfect. And I was really surprised because I'm doing a lighter coat over a dark piece, and typically that takes about at least 3 coats. But with this, I just used 2 coats on the base and I put a third coat on the top for more durability. And I also am going to, once this completely dries overnight, I'm going to let it cure and then put a top coat, the Fusion's Tough Coat in matte, on just the top. And that will help kind of harden the top so that people can put things on it and it won't scratch or cause any damage. So, but the rest of the paint has a sealer in it, and so the body of the piece, I don't have to worry about putting a top coat on. Hope that all makes sense. Kind of lost in my words tonight. So continuing on, and I'm using here the Stallmeister sash brush, and it's got a point to it in the middle, and I'm using that because of the spindles. It makes it really easy for that spindle to get into all those tiny little crevices in between each section. And then the second coat, I went in with more of a straight flat brush because I was trying to get the least amount of brush strokes. So here I'm going to do the top with that sash brush, and I'm using very minimal amounts. So every time I dip into the paint, I push it against the sides to get most of the paint back off, and that's going to keep a minimal amount of paint in there because these brushes really hold a lot of paint. So you can keep going for quite a while. And then what I like to do is I like to start in the middle and then work my way out to the ends. And then I just lightly brush over from side to side all the way to the ends. And that way I'll keep that brush stroke down to a minimum as well. So while that first coat is curing, I'm going to go ahead and clean that knob that was on the drawer. So I'm going to go in with some distilled vinegar, and I put it in with a little bit of water and microwaved it for 3 minutes so it's super hot. And this knob was really grimy. So I thought it would look really pretty to have a very nice gold color with this damask. And now I'm done with the second coat, so I'm going to go in with this 800 to 1000 grit ultrafine sandpaper and just smooth out the top and lightly rub and get all the little bumps off of there so that it's a nice and smooth finish. And then once I'm done sanding, I'm going to go ahead and use a microsoft fiber cloth to just remove that dust. And then I'm going to let that paint cure overnight, like I said before, and then I'll put the Tough Coat matte finish on top. But you definitely want to make sure to wipe it back down because there is quite a bit of dust just from that ultrafine sandpaper. You can see there. So the second project, I wanted something to go on, and the same friend gave me these. She's like, do you want these? I'm just going to throw them away. And I'm like, oh my gosh, don't throw them away. They're really old resin ducks, and of course the mama duck has missing eyes, and that's why she didn't want them anymore. So I'm like, well, I'm a DIYer. Let's fix it. So I'm going to take my Starbond glue, and I'm just going to go in little bits at a time and kind of layer the glue and use my accelerator in between each layer to cure it. And then I'm just going to do it enough just to get a small bulge like the eye would look. So that seemed to work out pretty well. It doesn't take very long because this accelerator makes that glue, it's super glue anyway, but it makes it harden super fast. So just sitting there watching my show and checking my messages. And then, like I said, you could see here, this is pretty much real time, and that was it. So I did that on both sides, and then I went in with the DIY's Faded Burlap, and I didn't have very much left, so I want to do like a textured finish on these guys. So I'm going to use some salt wash, put it into my paint, and I put way too much salt water or salt wash in there. So as I got to mixing, it's kind of like when you add flour to your biscuits or whatever you're baking in the mixer, and all of a sudden it just explodes. That's what happened right there. So I was like, uh-oh, got too much in there. So all I had to do was add some water and then just mix it up into the consistency that I was looking for. And normally I wouldn't put it right into the container, but since there was just a tiny bit of paint left, I went ahead and just mixed everything in this container. These DIY paints are all natural ingredients, and so you don't want to contaminate them because otherwise they can start growing mold and stuff. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there just so that you're not putting it in your brand new full container and then everything's kind of messed up. So just stirring it up, and then you can see it's a nice kind of thick, almost pasty consistency. And the first coat I use this brush here, and I started stippling, but then typically you just get that paint on there. Just get a nice coat of paint, get it all the way around, and then dry. Let it dry for a couple minutes, but I typically use my heat gun. And I love the DIY paint because you can definitely tell when it's dry, it'll turn a lighter color. And so I'm just trying to get that first coat on there. And then the second coat is where I take my time and I stipple my brush. See, Mom, I'm just kind of just lathering it back and forth. But that second coat, I stipple it to give it a nice, really cool texture. And then let that dry. And then some of the texture can have really high pokey points, and I just kind of rub my hands across it. You can take a fine grit sandpaper as well and just take those points down to where they're smooth to the touch. But you want to let it dry, and then I'm going to go in with Fusion's Antiquing Gel, or glaze, excuse me, and give them some more depth to their color. So here's where I'm stippling, and you can see that there's some texture going on there. So that's the look I'm going for. Kind of like a stone or a pottery look. It's just going to give these guys a little bit more modern update to them. But I just couldn't get rid of them because I thought they were so dang cute. Okay, so here's that antiquing glaze. It's a beautiful brown color, and it's really, really liquidy, but so it flows on really nice. I was going to do the wax, but I decided this is going to be a little bit easier, and it won't take that paint back off because the DIY paint does reactivate with liquid. So I'm trying to go just really easy on it, and then I go in small sections, and then I use my shop towel to remove all the excess. And then these just turned out so pretty. I'm going to take them back to her and say, see, this is why you don't throw things away. But she's really good now. She knows when to ask me if I want something or not. So I love it. It's pretty cool. Get a lot of free things and can turn them around and help her get them sold in her shop. So that's fun. So I did the set. I did Mama and Baby this way. And I really like how the glaze color complements the faded burlap paint. It gives it that nice old vintage vibe that I love. Yet you can use these little ducks in just about any type of decor because they're neutral, and they just fit in with a little bit of everything. So look at how cool that came out. And I did both of them that way, and here they are. See, Mama has eyes now. They might not be perfectly round, but they're there. So let me know what you guys think of these flips, and not quite sure what I'm going to do for Friday yet, so we'll have to see on that. But I hope you all have a wonderful week, and we'll see you back here for the next one on Friday. Take care, guys. Bye.